All right. So Ian Whitney is our next speaker. He's team lead for the custom solutions team in academic support resources. And he's also part of the Tech People Planning Committee that put this event together today. He's going to be talking about GitHub and silos. And yes, I will hand you this mic.
Just so much coffee. So to the folks that are watching this online, we know that you see my speaker notes. I can't do anything about it. So you just get to see my jokes in advance. So I am Ian Whitney, team lead of custom solutions within ASR. And when I was asked to be part of the Tech People Committee about a year and a half ago, one thing I really liked was that it was going to give us the opportunity to bring together all these people that don't normally get a chance to talk, kind of what we were saying earlier. And I was saying this morning that the fact that I didn't know or recognize more than half of you is fantastic. That's exactly what I want to see. It also means that I need to talk to more of you when the pizza comes. So if you were here in May, you saw Amanda Costello from CEHD give an excellent talk about how silos evolve over time and how you can build bridges between silos or, in some cases, destroy silos. And I'm going to be focusing a little bit more on the destroying silos today. And I'm going to be using a very concrete example of how you can destroy silos with a tool that we all have access to right now for free. And that's going to be GitHub. So if you've used GitHub, you might wonder at this point, how is GitHub going to help me destroy silos, right? It's just a website I go to. It's not really anything helpful in this space. You might be thinking that, or have that concern for one of two reasons. And the first might be that you would think that GitHub is just a site for coders, right? People who have laptops that look like this. But within our department, within ASR, Jen Zek, who is just here, has been introducing GitHub to teams of communicators, designers, business analysts, and data analysts. And all of these groups have been able to successfully use GitHub to improve their processes. And we now have a much wider group of users that use GitHub, and some of them don't have any stickers on their laptops, which I don't get. But you might also think that GitHub is just a place to store stuff. And if that was the case, if that's what GitHub was for, I would tell you to use Google Drive, or Isilon, or Box, or a floppy disk, right? There's so many other ways to solve the storage problem that do it better. So that's not what GitHub is for. GitHub is a tool of collaboration. GitHub, I would think, is built on the idea of bringing people together to have them collaborate on projects. And if GitHub is collaboration, then we end up with this nice logical syllogism. Collaboration destroys silos, GitHub is collaboration, therefore GitHub destroys silos, right? And Aristotle said that. You can't prove me wrong. So that's my pitch for why we would use GitHub to destroy silos, right? And I think we can all agree that I did an excellent job, and you all totally buy in. And we're going to move on now to how we can use GitHub to destroy those silos. And we're going to do it by talking about different types of silos. We're going to start with a silo that might be surprising to you, which is that you are a silo unto yourself, right? And that might seem weird to you. Well, I know what I did, so how could I silo myself? Well, if you ever looked at code or a document or anything that you wrote a year ago, or in my case, yesterday, and it seems like total alien gibberish to you, and you think to yourself, what was I thinking? I couldn't possibly have written this. Then that is how you could discover that you are a silo to yourself, right? The you of you yesterday is not the you of you now, and you've probably forgotten 95% of what you were doing last week. So the sorts of problems and dangers that can come up with this silo are, imagine that you have a project that you worked on and it used to work great and now it doesn't, right? The questions you would ask yourself, I don't know why this changed. The two questions. I don't know what changed, and I don't know why it changed. So we're going to use two GitHub tools to destroy this silo, to answer those questions. And those are comparisons, are going to let us see what changed, and we're going to use commit messages to see why it changed. Comparisons. So this is how you're going to answer the question of what changed a year ago. So this is an example of built-in comparisons within GitHub. This is an SCSS file that I think came from the classroom management website that Jen worked on. And on the left is the old version of the file. On the right is the new version of the file. Does this have a laser pointer? I don't know how to turn it on. Okay, well, never mind. Shoot myself in the eye. Anyways, red lines have been deleted, green lines are added. And so very quickly here within this one file, we can see that we lost 2 lines, we added 8 new lines, and if we know something about style sheets, then we would see that we did something here around width of a screen, so we're probably trying to address phone displays. That's fantastic, and you can really see very quickly what changed. And this works for text. We don't all work in text. Some of us work with images. GitHub gives you the ability to see differences in images very easily. And it does it in a variety of ways. This is the one I like the best because it's cool and animated. But you can see drag between 2 different versions of the image to see exactly what changed. So very easy using comparisons in GitHub to see what changed. I don't think what's a particularly useful question to ask. I think more often what we want to know is why. If we go back to that example of when we introduced new screen widths for this one website, what problem were we trying to solve? If I change it back, am I going to break how the site displays on every single iPhone? I don't know. I can't learn that just from looking at the comparison. When you change a file in Git or GitHub, you can put in a message. There's 2 parts to the message. The top part is a required kind of short description, and then the second part here is a much longer optional description. I would not think of that second part as optional, because that second part is where you get to describe the entire reasoning behind you making this change. What fire did you just put out? You know, when I made that style sheet change, is it because the new iPhone X or 10 or whatever we're supposed to call it broke the OCM website? What's going to happen if I change it back? This is where you get to leave a message to your future self. What were you thinking? And you can do that message in a couple different ways. You can do it in a cryptic, completely devoid of context way that does not help you when you come back to look at this later. What was silly? How is it silly? If I change it back, will it be silly again? Is silliness bad? I do not know. You can also leave yourself a lot of details. And when my team makes changes and the commit message is 10 times longer than the number of lines they changed, I want to just give them a cookie. Like that's what I want to see, right? This amount of detail, when I have to come back and look at this later, is going to save me from myself. So that's how we answer the 2 questions and the problems that come up with that first silo, the silo of you. The second silo we're going to look at here is your team. You know, you're all individuals and you work on the same stuff and you talk to each other all the time, but these barriers are still going to form between you. There's a project that your team member works on that you don't ever really touch, but now you have to. You work on a project a lot and you're about to go out on vacation and your team member now has to support it. So the sorts of problems that come up with this silo are, my team does not know what my project does. They know it's there, but they don't really know what it does. And I don't know about changes that my teammate makes. You know, that can come up with, you know, say that your teammate makes a change on a Friday afternoon and then goes out on vacation, and then Saturday you get all the support calls, right? And you have no idea what just happened. We can use all the same tools that we've already seen, comparisons and commit messages, but GitHub offers us some extra tools here. There's the README to introduce projects and pull requests to manage change. READMEs. So this is going to help solve the problem of my team does not know what this project does. READMEs are just a text file. They have the name README for historical reasons. And GitHub make a decision very early on to put READMEs front and center. If your project has a README, it will display it in big text when anyone looks at your project. So that makes it the perfect place to put the sort of documentation about what this project does and why it's there. This is an example of the README for a project that we worked on at Campus Code Fest that provides information about what term it is today. And you can see we kind of are introducing this project to new people. There's a very high level of what it does, and then there's some terminology that people need to kind of know to understand what's going on. And then there's some examples of usage. Farther on down, you might say, here's how to set this up on your own computer, here's how to make some changes, whatever you need to do to introduce your project. You can put it all in a README. If you need to get really fancy, GitHub also supports wikis, but that's much more in depth. Now, if you want to manage change, GitHub offers a tool called pull requests. This covers the problem of your teammate making changes that you don't know about that ends up breaking your stuff. This is an example of a pull request. So the example I gave was, a teammate makes that change on a Friday, heads out on vacation, you get those support calls, you don't know what's going on. Pull requests are basically, instead of just making the change, it's a way of saying, hey, I want to make this change. And it gives everyone on that project the opportunity to review that change and chime in with comments. And in this one, this is a request that my teammate Sean wanted to make. My teammate David here has said, hey, I think you should make a change to this. What you've done here will work, but it has some stylistic and idiomatic problems that we should solve now, because it'll be harder to solve later, right? Now imagine if you were looking through your teammates' changes on that Friday and you saw that they were about to just completely destroy your website. You would be able to alert them in advance before that change went into production and they went on vacation. The other advantage of this now is that 2 people or more on the team know what's in a project, right? Everyone gets a chance to see what changes are happening. So we don't have just one person who knows how everything works. So we've used READMEs and we've used pull requests to get your team communicating with one another and things are going great. Now let's kind of break out to that third silo. That third silo is going to be your department. If your department is anything like mine, no one knows what we do, right? They come up to me and you're like, did you do that thing like with the website stuff? And we're like, no, I don't, maybe, I don't know. So there's some other problems you might need to solve when working and collaborating around your department, right? Your department doesn't know what you do. You need a way of explaining that. You want to work with people across your department. This happens a lot to me. We have BAs who are experts in various fields. And so if we're working on a project that we don't know the details all that well, we go out, those BAs are our subject matter experts. We need to be able to collaborate closely with them. Or maybe your manager just bought a fancy new tool and they now want to see all of your progress and reports in that fancy new tool. Jira, Trello, Slack, whatever that might be. So GitHub offers us some tools here to tackle these silos. And we're going to use pages to help show off your team. We're going to use teams. It's an overloaded word, but GitHub calls them teams, and I'm teams everywhere. We're going to use teams to collaborate with others, and we're going to use integrations to work with other tools. Let's use pages to show off your team. How do you answer this question? My department does not know what we do. So GitHub Pages, essentially in GitHub, lets you create a web page within just a few minutes. This is an example of a web page I built for my team. We've got some sections here where, hey, here's what we do. We have a blog where we talk about some of our projects. If we have a job listing, we post it there. And the advantage of this is that GitHub lets you create very simple static websites, I think much easier than your other options on campus. And you get to manage those websites within GitHub using all the tools that we already talked about. You can use pull requests to review changes. You can use commit messages to see why things changed over time. And then when you do make a change to your website, it's deployed pretty much right away. We don't have some of the caching problems I know has bitten me in our Drupal sites, where I make a change and then I wait. And then it goes up and then I cheer. And you also have a choice on this. GitHub Pages, if you were to create them at the university's GitHub, github.umn.edu, are only going to be visible to people who are on campus and signed in. So you have some privacy, I wouldn't call it privacy, some restriction of that audience maybe. But if you put that page up on github.com, then that is going to be public to the entire world. This site is on github.com because we want the whole world to know about my team. Teams and teams and teams. So what do you do if you've got a project and you need input and collaboration from another person? You want them to see things like your pull requests, or you want them to be able to contribute changes, but they're not necessarily part of your day-to-day operations. So what GitHub offers here is what it calls teams, which is just a grouping of any people that you want. And you can, kind of like Google Drive, give them certain levels of access to that project. Can they make whatever change they want? Can they only view? That sort of thing. This is the team that we built out of that term service that we did at Campus Code Fest, and it involves, BA from OIT, some developers with an OIT, a developer in libraries, and then myself. And so this is a great way to work with all those folks in your department that you don't see day to day, but you need their subject matter expert on just like one or two things here and there. Integrations. So your manager wants to see progress in Jira or Trello, or you want to do stuff in Slack. You can connect GitHub to pretty much anything, right? Any sort of web application that's written in the last 10 years, I think you can probably integrate it. This one's just showing Trello, but I didn't even count, there's hundreds of those things that are just built-in integrations that you can add. They're all going to behave slightly differently, so I don't have one example that's going to be representative. But, for example, my team uses Pivotal Tracker. When we make a change to a project, we can say this, starts this story or this resolves this story. You can do the same thing with Trello and Jira. So you've broken down all those silos there in your department. Your department is doing great, and now let's go for that big silo, right? There's your department, and then there's the rest of the university. People are really unfamiliar with what your department does. Maybe they've never even heard of you. That happens to me a lot. All the same tools that we've seen before still apply, right? You can use READMEs, you can use Pages, you can use all those sorts of collaborative tools, but GitHub then adds a layer on top of that that really tackles the larger social problems that we see here at the university. So what does your department do? What's up with that project? When is it going to change? What does that person do? Who are you? What do you do? And does my friend know about this? Right? These are larger social problems. And these are the tools that GitHub offers you. Organizations to see what a department does. You can use Watch to see when a project changes. You can follow a person to see what they do. And the ubiquitous @ sign to notify others. People ask me this all the time, what do you do? Where do you work? I've never heard of you. So organizations, in university terms, a department or a team you could think of as an organization. ASR Custom Solutions is an organization in GitHub. It's just a grouping of a bunch of projects under some sort of header. This is the example of university libraries organization. So if there's a department or a team that you end up working with a lot, you can go and just browse their projects and start to see what they're doing. The value here on your side is to make your projects public, because you have the choice at GitHub of making them private. But if you make all of your work private, then still no one's going to know what you do. So make your work public. We work with libraries fairly frequently, so it's nice to be able to see what they're doing, what's changed recently, what sort of new projects are they working on, is there maybe some work we can steal, that sort of thing. If there's one project that you specifically use a lot, then what you might want to do is see when that project changes or find out about bugs about it or other things that you might care about. So here's a project. This is that term service I mentioned. Let's say that you were really interested in this and using it a lot. You can do this watch thing up at the top. You click the creepy 1984 eye and choose watching. And what it says there is you're going to be notified of all conversations. So a new pull request, a new bug, any sort of conversations or activity that's happening in this project, you're going to get an email about. If you want to just go for a single person, maybe it's someone that you work with a lot, what you might want to do is then just follow them. And then there's that button there. It doesn't have the creepy eye on this one. I don't know why. But you can follow Michael Burkowski, and you can say, hey, what's he up to? The advantage of that here is, well, at least with my team, we end up collaborating with, a lot of times we collaborate with specific developers, either through Code People or Campus Code Fest or other things. And we want to kind of just keep in touch. And so being able to see new stuff that Michael's doing helps us keep up to date with new tools we might want to use ourselves. And then there's the @ sign, which you can use to notify others, tackling the problem of, I want to make sure that so-and-so knows about this. And this is an example. Eleni, who was there last time, there you are, requested a change to that term service. For CLA, they wanted to be able to quickly see what term is coming up next and what term came before. And so I had a question on this one, and so right there, I asked her with a little @ sign, and I said, hey, we want to do it this way. Does that work for you? She got the notification. She was able to answer the question right away, and then we deployed it, and we were able to solve that problem for her. So you could do these little @ signs with the person's internet ID in any conversation, and they're going to be able to, they'll get a notification, even if they're not watching the project or following you or anything like that. So everything in here is fantastic and great. You can just go use everything, except for there's probably a lot of questions. This is a real whirlwind tour of a lot of features of GitHub, and there's about a dozen other features of GitHub that I did not really dive into at all. So the questions you might be asking yourself now, how can I read more about this stuff, or how can I talk to other people? How can you read more? The GitHub doc site is really excellent. The little video I stole of the cat image, that's from there. They've got a lot of movies of how things work, really great documentation of how you can really take advantage of the tools within GitHub. And the other aspect of GitHub is that it is changing all the time. Our implementation, our installation of GitHub changes, gets an upgrade 3 to 4 times a year. If you're using github.com, they're adding new features daily in some cases. So there might be a little bit of a drift between what current GitHub supports and what we have, but it'll all end up here eventually. How can I talk to other people online? We'll just keep putting that link up to the Slack until you're all on it. There's 2 channels in there. There is a GitHub specific channel, and then there's also Hacker Hours. How is that relevant? Well, it answers the second question, which is how can you talk to other people in person? Hacker Hours offers weekly open office hours of developers on campus. You can show up at any time with any questions you might have. Stay for 5 minutes, stay for as long as you want. We rotate between the campuses, St. Paul, East Bank, West Bank, weekly. So every 3 weeks we're going to be on a campus that you work on, hopefully, unless we have Duluth and Morris here, I know. So we don't get that far. But you can always just show up and say, hey, I want to know how to use pull requests. And we have a host there every week who can help answer those questions and give you the information that you need. Then that's our website. And that's about it for me. So I want to say thank you. Email address is there, the Slack name is there. And then I'm right next to that Certix in Northrop, and they know me really well. So if you ever want to hang out and talk about this stuff, just send me a note and we can meet up for coffee. Thank you.